So welcome everyone. My name is Michelle Chalmers and the president of the World of Wellesley. And on behalf of my board that's here, where is everyone? Raise your hand, say hello. Yes, half the people here are World of Wellesley board members, which we obviously are very excited. So welcome everyone to the 4th annual Wellesley Community Diversity Summit, and we are so excited for this opportunity today. We have a lot to do in the next 4 hours, and we're just so thrilled that everyone was able to take the time and spend this beautiful day with us. And don't worry if you have to leave and if you have to come back, whatever you need to do, but we hope that our day together is mindful and engaging. And so what I thought we would do as just a welcoming exercise, and actually first and foremost I need to recognize the community center. I always forget the building that we are in, that we would not be able to have this amazing event every year if it wasn't for the Wellesley Community Center. So I really want to give a big round of applause to Steve. He is an amazing manager of this building, and you know, I grew up in Wellesley and remember the community center here when I was here, and it is, I mean, it's just amazing what he does. And so you do an amazing job, Steve, and definitely take a look at what he is doing, what programming and events and opportunities that he is bringing to the community. It truly is a community center. And the World of Wellesley has all of our board meetings here, and does not cost us anything, which is amazing, and obviously to be here today. So that's just a huge blessing, because we know how space is in this town. So we are very, very thankful for that. So Steve, thank you again, and thank you to the Community Center. So we are very excited. So what we thought we would do is just for a little icebreaker. I'm assuming you sat with everybody you know, but just in case you didn't, I think we'll just take a quick minute and introduce yourself, make sure everyone knows everyone's names and pronouncing everyone's names correctly. And what I thought we would do is share with the person to the left or to the right, or whoever you decide, if you have to do groups of 3 if it's uneven, why you're here today. So what is it that brought you here? And so you'll take each 1 minute, where you'll share for 1 minute as to what brought you here. And I want the person listening to listen. Don't say anything, don't comment. Try not to shake your head, but listen as the person with you is sharing why they are here today. And then make no comments, and then the next minute, I'll stop you in a minute, and then we'll switch, and then you'll listen to the other person that you're with as to why they're here today and what you hope comes out of today, and obviously the work that you do and that World of Wellesley continues to do. So first, I'll give you a minute just to say hello and introduce yourself. Then I'll interrupt, and then we'll do our 2-minute share back. Okay, so 1 minute, introduce yourself, please. Okay, community. So now we will turn to each other and try to face each other if you can, to be able to see the person that you'll be speaking to, and we'll give you 1 minute to share. And remember, if you're listening, you're listening. Okay, so 1 minute. Why are you here today, and what do you hope comes out of this opportunity? And 1 minute. Thank you. I'm here for Okay, so that was the first. And how did we do? How did we do? I heard a lot of people talking to each other. I did not hear a lot of listening.
We listen.
You listen? Thank you, Dr. Chapman listens. So now we're going to switch. And now we're going to listen to the other person. Really try to not say anything. And listen with your eyes, listen with your smile, but try to listen to the other person now, speak their truth as to why they're here today and what they hope to come of this event and what the work that we're doing. Okay, listen. Okay, so what I was hoping is that we could go around the table and just have one person from the table, unless someone else would like to. How's everybody? Would like to share? I would like to hear at least one person from the table share what they said or what they heard. Allison?
Hi, I'm Allison Britton. I'm the Secretary of the World of Wellesley, and I got a chance to sit with these wonderful people here. Delia, thank you. No, Delia here, her I think it was her granddaughter was in Now in Color. So this is her first time coming to the Diversity Summit, so she's really happy to be here.
Yeah, I am.
Yes. And then we've got Janie here. She's from Sudbury, and she's coming here to see what other towns are doing by way of facilitating diversity, so she can bring that back to Sudbury and try to get things going there. And we've got David here, and he's here because he's also part of an organization that the Road of Wellesley partners with quite often in Needham. Yeah, Needham Diversity Initiative. So, and Michelle asked me to be here, and he's here supporting us today. And this is my mom, Carolyn Britton. And she's here supporting me and supporting the program.
Thank you, Allison. And we will definitely have the opportunity to speak with Allison again as she is moderating the panel today. So, anyone from this table want to share?
All right, are we just like sharing everybody at the table?
No, you can do whatever you'd like. But I thought just one person to share, just so we have enough time.
Cool, okay. I can talk about it, but all right, so I guess Phoebe and I both are here because we're Wellesley first years and trying to learn more about the town. You want to talk? Yeah.
And let everyone know that means Wellesley College.
Yeah.
Yeah, we both attend Wellesley College.
Yeah, we're in the college.
So my name is Phoebe Thomas, and I had the pleasure of talking with Miss Robin, who I actually met at a Harambe House meet and greet, which is the house for African descent students on campus. And we were just talking about different reasons for being here, and one thing that I heard when she was sharing is kind of talking about her experience wanting to exist in a place where she doesn't have to have permission to prove her legitimacy as a human, meaning just by the color of her skin. It is very difficult, and that's something that I felt as well because I work in Wellesley Hills, and it's very hard sometimes to walk at night and constantly have 75% of my thoughts be more about me than like the cars that are around me, and I feel like the danger that I can come into contact with is not like physical but more mental and kind of like implicit bias, and I kind of talked with Sophie about that on the way here. So it was really interesting to have her voice that opinion and me be able to connect with her in that way.
Thank you for sharing that. Very, very important. Thank you. Thank you. Anyone else want to speak from this table? And the cord won't reach, so you have to get out.
Sure.
want to stand up? You can come over, or you can stand where you are.
That's fine. I'm Tom Oldfelder. I'm a member of the Board of Selectmen, and I appreciate the opportunity to participate in one of the panels, which is the practical reason that I'm here. But this is really a very important day, and I think that, you know, we're going through a unified planning process that Marjorie Fryman, a fellow member of the Board of Selectmen, is really in charge of. But my point is, it is easy to talk about cliches, such as wanting a diverse community. I think our goal is, what does that mean? How do we make that happen? When you have a median house price of $1.3 million, that's a barrier to almost anyone living in Wellesley. How do we make it happen so that we have a truly welcoming community where people feel they can move in and participate? How do we increase diversity among our volunteers? How do we make people feel that their voice will be heard? And how do we stop exactly how you feel? I think that is just so important. It's a terrible thing to sit and listen to somebody talk about your feelings the way you just did. And I think it's critical that we try to figure out how do we make that stop. I don't know what that is, but I hope we can figure that out.
Thank you.
Yes. It happens by what just happened. And a whole lot more. But it starts, yeah. To speak your truth, to have someone hear, to have someone listen who has power, that can hear, and not just hear, but hear. Yes. It's very, thank you. Thank you for sharing. Thank you for sharing. Wow, this diversity summit's awesome. Okay. Hi, Melissa.
Hi,
Michelle. How are you, sweetie? And Marie. How are you, baby? I'm good. Okay. So, would you like to? Did you get to share? The three of you? Were you here?
Marie and I spoke
You did.
to each other, yes.
And have you met this lovely woman?
No, we've been recently joined by this.
Hi,
I
my
haven't
name
seen
is Tamara. I've lived in Wellesley since 1995. My husband is European American, he's white. We're a multiracial family, and we chose to send our children to independent school because we wanted them to be in a community where they could see people that look like mom and also see people that looked like my husband. So they actually went to the Shady Hill School in Cambridge. Basically a third of the students diverse, but we were really concerned about, although as much as we loved the community of Wellesley, felt it was a bubble and it really wasn't reality. So my daughter's now in college, so it's been a while. But I also recently started work last year at the Dana Hall School, and I'm here with two hats on. One is a resident of the town of Wellesley, but also as a teacher at the Dana Hall School, and trying to better understand all the wonderful opportunities for diversity, equity, and inclusion in the town of Wellesley. So that's why I'm here. But I've known about the World of Wellesley for many years, and I know that's not the name officially, but this is like the first time I've actually attended an event, so I'm very excited to be here.
Thank you, Tamara. I'm glad that you're here. I can't believe your daughter's in college. Wow. And good to see you.
Likewise.
And I didn't know you were at Dana Hall, so that's a conversation we have to have. Excellent. Thank you. Thank you for sharing. Did either Marie or Melissa, did you want to share? You good?
No, I'm just here to keep an eye on you, Michelle.
And she does that very well. Okay, wow, look at this table. It's a large table. Everyone's sitting over there. Wow. Who would like to present their truth this morning? Michael?
Go for it.
You want the microphone?
I think I'm fine without it. Can everyone hear me?
Yeah.
All right, good morning. I'm Michael Dortenzio. I'm here representing the school committee and the school department, along with our superintendent here, David Luce here. So rather than introducing everyone at the table, I'll let people jump up after me if there's anything that they want to share. I just wanted to start by saying thank you to Michelle and the World of Wellesley for hosting us. One of our school committee goals this year is really to dive deeper into questions of inclusion and equity. One of the things that the superintendent has really taken the lead on has been bringing a group in to do consulting and a K-12 overview of public schools of where are we around equity and inclusion, getting a baseline set of both qualitative and quantitative information so we know where we are as a district. That's something that is already underway. We're working on that throughout the fall and the early winter, and we expect to have something publicly towards the new year. So that's one of our big goals this year for the school committee, and as I said, the school department. We're looking forward to working with the community on that. I'd love to talk to any of you one-on-one to get more feedback or information from you. And outside of that, I'm just here just to listen. I came last year when I had just joined the school committee, and it was really a great event. So thank you again to the invite from Michelle and for organizing this.
Thank you, Michael. Thank you. Anyone else from the table want to share? David, good morning. How are you? Marjorie?
This is a little different than sharing what we talked about, but the selectmen have a proclamation.
Oh, can you come up here?
Well, it's kind of long. I
That's
don't
okay.
need It's not that long. So I'm Marjorie Fryman from, as Tom said, another member of the Board of Selectmen. And in gratitude and appreciation to the World of Wellesley, the Board of Selectmen has signed a proclamation to present today. And it says, whereas the World of Wellesley is celebrating 28 years of active participation and involvement within the town of Wellesley and continues to promote a variety of activities and programs throughout the year. And whereas the World of Wellesley is dedicated to making Wellesley a welcoming community where diversity is celebrated, in partnership with many local institutions and organizations, the World of Wellesley organizes events, projects, and programs that emphasize the value in exploring our many cultures, religions, and way of life. And whereas the World of Wellesley strives to bring the community together through sharing and education, and whereas the World of Wellesley produces quality programs, activities, and will celebrate the birthday of Dr. Martin Luther King on Monday, January 15th, 2018. Now, therefore, the Wellesley Board of Selectmen wishes to express its appreciation to those who celebrate and contribute to this October 21st Annual Diversity Summit. Signed by the Board of Selectmen.
Thank you. And if everyone takes a program book, if you haven't already, on the way out, the proclamation is in our World of Wellesley program book this year, and a wonderful letter from Chairwoman Ellen Gibbs, who wrote just an amazing letter to the World of Wellesley. And we are just so thankful for that connection. We look to work with school committee, and we're always working with Wellesley Public Schools and Dr. Lucier. So we are just very, very thrilled that this community organization is really connecting to a lot of very important entities in our town. We're very thankful, obviously, for the relationship with Wellesley College, with Babson College, with Mass Bay Community College, with Needham Diversity Initiative. I just spoke with 2 women in Newton that are looking to create a World of Wellesley in Newton. So they reached out, they would like to, and now we have this young lady here for Sudbury. This is so exciting. So thank you so much. Thank you for indulging in those listening exercises. And think about that skill as you move forward in the week or weeks ahead. That when you are listening to someone speak, try to listen and really hear. I think that a lot of times when we speak and we're talking in a conversation, we're thinking about what we're going to say next when the person that we are engaging with is speaking their truth. And so sometimes we can miss things. And so I think that slowing down sometimes and giving that opportunity to listen, especially with our children, and our significant others. And then think about what you want to say and present. So it's a skill that I'm trying to learn myself. So welcome again, everyone. We are so excited. We have the Diversity Club of Wellesley High School with us today. We have the president, yes, Adriana Bocci, and her brother Brandon and Annie. And so we would like to invite the Wellesley Diversity Club of Wellesley High School to come up and do our first presentation and exercise. So welcome, everyone.
Yeah, you can do whatever you want. Did you figure out?
Yeah, this is it right here.
Okay, perfect. So do you want, you
The sound is on, right?
it should be. You tell me when to.
Alright, thanks. Good morning, everyone. Thank you so much for coming. My name is Adriana Bocci, and I'm the president and founder of the Diversity Club. And this year, the club is launching a new campaign entitled What Can I Do?, which encourages students and community members to focus on at least one thing that they themselves specifically can do towards ending inequality and raising awareness for social justice. We feel that if everyone in this room did just one thing towards ending this issue, that it would make a significant impact. Now I'm going to turn the stage over to one of our vice presidents, Annie Yu.
Pull it up. Yeah, there you go.
Hi everyone, my name is Annie Yu and I'm the Vice President of the Diversity Club. So when we say we want to attain equality, I think the first step we have to take is define equality. You know, it's such a vague, amorphous term. What does it actually look like in practice? So at Wellesley High School, one of the graduation requirements is to take a U.S. history class, which I was not thrilled with. I'm not good at history. I don't really know much about it, and I couldn't really tell you, the order of the amendments or about the War of 1812. But one concept that did stick with me was this idea of lived versus legal equality and the disparity that seems to happen between the two. So legal equality is what we have on paper. And it seems like we've made a lot of progress, which we have in the form of legislation. But we can't discount the fact of how that translates over into lived equality and how that affects the lives of U.S. citizens. So while it's true that laws can change hearts and minds, the reverse of that is also true. Hearts and minds can change laws, and in that way we can affect real change. And I think the key to that is open conversation, which is harder than it sounds. When we hear someone say something that we disagree with, our gut instinct is to lash out, to accuse, and say, you're wrong, or how could you ever say that? We have to take a step back and maybe curb that instinct, and instead change that to an open-ended question, which is a nuance I think is very important to keep in mind. One of the singular, most empowering questions you can ask someone is, what do you think and why? It opens the door to let that person look at their opinion through a critical lens and really examine from an objective standpoint. Is what my thoughts, do my thoughts make sense? And do I have legitimate reasoning? So I think when people are speaking, we have to listen with the intention of understanding and not just rebuttal. So when people are speaking, you're not just forming, an argument to immediately use on them as soon as they're done. You have to actually try and understand where they're coming from and why they think what they think. So you might actually change minds with this method, and at the very least, both people will gain a fresh new perspective. And I think the main takeaway from this is keep the conversation going, keep it productive and not destructive, and maybe someday, hopefully, lived equality will catch up with legal equality. Thank you.
Put it up and then
There we go.
Good morning, everyone. Thank you, everyone who's here. It's so great that we have so many people that are active and involved in the community. That's one of the things I really like about these events is that it gives us an opportunity for us all to come together. So, like everyone behind me, I'm also an officer at the Diversity Club, but additionally, I'm also a class officer for the class of 2019 at Wellesley High School, which is the junior class. And in response to Adriana's campaign, what can I do? One of the things that we strive to do as class officers is to increase participation to our events. You know, whether it's a social event or whether it's something that our class is doing, we want to make sure that we get as much participation as possible. And in the past year, I've noticed that there are some people that unfortunately cannot attend all of our events. And it's very sad. It's sad to see that there are some people who come here, who wake up at like 5 a.m. and have to be transported over to our high school and then can't participate in all of our events. And I think that a lot of you know who I'm referring to. If you don't, I'm referring to some of our MECCO students who can't come to our events. And this is something that we need to change, and this is something that we need to fix. And I think that when we look at this issue, a large part of it is transportation, which is kind of like, come on, transportation? We can fix this issue, and this is something that I'm very passionate about doing. This is something that I want to do, and so this year my goal is to work to make sure that everyone can participate in our class events, because it's important that we have an inclusive and welcoming community where everyone can participate. So that's it. I'll keep it very brief because we have a lot of activities planned for the day. Thank you.
Hi, my name is Sofia Hernandez, and I'm a junior at Wellesley High School. I just joined the Diversity Club this year because my friend Adriana told me it was really cool and there would be pizza. But I'm also really interested in diversity. My mom and I, and my brother and I moved to the United States 6 years ago from Ecuador. So we've already been here 6 years, which is a long time. But still, sometimes I feel, and I know my mom feels the same way too, like we haven't been fully included into the Wellesley community. And I know that a lot of the kids at school have been with like their friends for years and years, and they've lived here their whole lives. So it makes it harder for newer students to try and integrate themselves into the school and into the community. So I figured joining the Diversity Club would maybe help me like talk a little bit more about why this is happening and what we can do to help fix it. But that doesn't mean that the kids aren't like open to diversity. It's just harder for us to really like not only talk about things but also do them. Because I feel like the school always presents itself as like a place where you should feel included. And we lead activities at the school for it, but it's really not only being in the mindset of it, but making sure that even the small actions that you do show that you include others. Like at school, like lunch tables, it's something small, but like if you see someone sitting alone, I feel like you should include them. Because I know I have a very like it's like a small group of friends. So normally, like I have like my 4 like main people or something like that. So we'll sit together, and sometimes there will be less of us, and there's like a whole table of girls, and we're just sitting like the 2 of us. And I feel like something small that we could do there is like help our students understand that it would be so easy just to invite us to sit with them. And I feel like small steps like that could really help at least Wellesley High School become more inclusive to diverse students and understand that each other's backgrounds are different. If we moved from somewhere else and we lived in another place, even to understand what it was like before and how that has changed us and like how we are. I don't know. But yeah, so that's why I joined the Diversity Club, and I came today to support my friend Adriana, who is really awesome, and she does all these events at school, and I'm really, really proud of her. So I should share that today.
Okay, so thank you to all our officers and members who just spoke. Unfortunately, not everyone in the club could attend today's summit, so we've created a little mini video of some of their opinions on this issue. I'm just gonna play it right now. Okay.
Leanne has to go to work, so I just want to say goodbye.
have to be more open to people and going out and taking initiative to talk to those people, and getting to know people outside of your own comfort zone. So your play artistic practice, a lot of it is about lifting up people and empowering people. The library is where you're at to disrupt the status quo to better accomplish those goals.
Or it's totally inappropriate, tell them to stop, or kind of just tell them what they're doing is wrong, and they're not understanding that, and kind of like tell them to do like go with you.
Unless you have your voice heard and imaginative and a little more creative.
So they're thoughtful on Facebook, because I think that a lot of people like to write their opinions and a lot of their own stories or encounters with racism and everything that happened to them. And I like the fact that people like to share those with other people.
Fruition, everybody feels like they are loved with mistakes and that the artwork reflects their community.
The action is easier as a group, even as a small group, so having that community and support is conducive to making changes.
Creating a certain time, a certain function, or creating a club or a group or something you can do just to make it more open and have a space where people are meant to go and use each other.
And I have the power to make change by participating in organizations like Diversity Club. And I think this is important because while having casual discussions with like family and friends is important, I think it's equally important to have something like Diversity Club because it provides like a specific time and space for people who are like-minded or students who are like-minded to talk about certain issues, and those issues of equality and raising awareness are the central focus during that time. And I think this is really helpful in allowing for change to be made. Firstly, through like open discussions, which allow students to voice their concerns and frustrations, and gives them like an outlet and a space to do that.
Very important thing. People can chew you off one time. They can't chew you off if you are insisting on change.
Okay. So this is made with iMovie, so sorry about the audio quality, but thank you for all the students who participated in this. So now I'm going to turn the stage back over to Brandon, where he's gonna lead us in a game.
Yeah, so part of the reason also why we're here is because we promised that we would do some sort of activity to engage the crowd. Can I have 4 volunteers, please? 4 brave volunteers. Come on. All right, we have 1. 2, okay. Anyone else? We need 2 more. 3, 4, awesome. You can have 5 people too if 5 people want to do it. That's totally fine.
Oh, there are prizes.
Yeah, there are prizes. Yeah, so what I'm gonna have the 5 people do is sort of get into a circle or some sort of shape, or I can place something at an equal distance from all of them. Come on, guys, let's make it a little bit bigger.
You can move back over here.
A little bigger. You guys can move over here if you need more space. All right, awesome. And now Adriana is going to place this tennis ball in the center. All right. So we have 5 people. Try to place it as equally close, as equal in the center as possible. So everyone's, yeah, there we go. Everyone's at an equal distance from it, so it's nice and fair, right? In the center.
It's the center.
All right, yeah, that's center. And so the objective of this game is actually really, really simple. When I say go, each of you are going to try to grab for the tennis ball. Now, let's try not to let anyone end up with any black and blues or any injuries. So please be careful.
Get as many tennis balls as you can is the objective.
Okay, sure. And yeah, so when I say go, you guys are gonna get it. But what I'm actually gonna do is hold up here. Can you take? All right, nice. So yeah, of you are going to get it, but I'm just going to put it closer to him. So, all right, I'm just going to put it closer to him, guys. It's still very fair. So it's still a really fair game. But yeah, when I say go, each of you can try to grab tennis balls. You guys all have equal odds, right? You know, it's not closer to anyone else. All right, ready? Ready, guys? All right, 1, 2, 3, go. I think one person really determined to get the ball. Let's try this again. This time with only one. Thank you. Wow, you guys are really fast. Alright, so this time I'm going to do it again. Again, I'm going to place the ball in the center of the shape so everyone has an equal chance of getting it. Alright, right? Everyone has an equal chance of getting the ball. And when I say go, you're going to grab for it, and whoever gets it first will get a prize. Alright, ready? 1, 2, 3, go. Come on, guys. It really could have been anyone. So that's the game. Congratulations to the 2 people who won those 2 rounds. Yeah, everyone gets a gift for participating. You guys are great. Thank you. So what we sort of set up here was something that we would like to, I guess, highlight. And John, would you like to explain it?
Oh, sure. Okay. So how many of you think you got this game? Pretty straightforward. Okay, would any of you like to explain like, in your own, like, what you thought of it or what you got from it?
Okay.
Oh, you can go. We can go.
Oh, okay. So essentially that it's the difference between the lived and the espoused concept of equity, that everyone is starting out, you know, on first base or home plate. And so if you hit like, you know, a home run, it's because you hit a home run, but some people actually start on third base. But then everybody acts as if they hit a home run from home plate. So, you know, it's equal, maybe thought to be equal in the opportunity, but it's not equitable.
Exactly, yeah. And if you notice, the people on the other side of the circle had to like run in an attempt to get the ball, so that kind of shows how the people who are on third base have to try sometimes twice as hard as those who start out on home base.
Well, the opposite.
Opposite, yeah. Yeah, okay. I don't know baseball. And while, like, we don't want people to be defined by their privilege or lack of privilege, but we believe that when you're trying to, you know, like, combat, like, systems, like, you know, racism and inequality, privilege is an important part of understanding why this system exists in the first place and how can we dismantle it, you know, so that everyone doesn't have to, you know, run across to get the ball, and that the ball can be actually in the center of the playing field. And so we're nearing the end of our little presentation. Oh, sorry, hi. No.
I appreciated the game, and it just made me want to add one word to what you said about privilege being unearned privilege. That the person who had the ball closer didn't do anything to earn that. So
yes,
there is privilege that people work hard to keep.
Exactly, yeah. Thank you for adding that. That's a very crucial point. So yeah, we're in the end. So I just would like to wrap up our little video and our little game and everything by like saying like why we should all care. Like you might not think, oh well, like this doesn't affect me immediately. You know, like I can walk down the street without being discriminated against, or you know, I don't have to try just as hard to get the same thing as someone else. But in the end, we would all benefit from a more just and, you know, more peaceful world. You know, be a safer world for everyone, and who doesn't want to live in a world like that? So that's why, as we continue the summit, I just want to remind everyone that there is something that we can all do, no matter how big or small, and that this is something that lies on all of our shoulders, and it's something we all have to work together to end. Okay, thank you. Thank you.
Wow, thank you.
You want this? Thank you. Thank you so much. Thank you. You want blue or green?
Yes, we did.
Thank you, Sophia.
So another round of applause for the Wellesley High School Diversity Club. That's an amazing job. Does anyone have any thoughts or comments? Maybe we can hear from one or two people as to, sure,
Yeah,
please.
well, it's interesting. I walk around work, and I was walking back into work the other day. I'm not sure what it was, but I saw a line of people lined up, and like one person sort of running a group, just like 30 or 40 people. And I've been with the company 13, 14 years. So it was like a wide range of people, but I think they were all middle to upper management. And what the guy said was, similar to this exercise, if your parents went to college, take a step forward.
Yeah, that's a privilege.
Right. So it was sort of a similar thing, and I think, I didn't stay around because I had to go to lunch, but it was a similar sort of thing to get the leaders to understand that there are certain people who arrive on third base, and either through like what their parents did or whatever, or just a history of opportunity, what have you, and that there are other people who literally had to run like their whole lives, and had to get on the bus at 5 in the morning, and weren't exposed to all the other things and cultural things that other people have. But that doesn't mean that they don't have the same potential or the same ability, if given the opportunity, to do something. And so I find it interesting, I'm hoping this is the case, that they were telling these middle to upper level management things. You have to keep that in mind when you deal with people who have different abilities and different strengths and weaknesses in the workplace. And and so in some ways the corporate world is sort of leading that thing. It would be nice if we had something like that on the town level, but I don't know how to do that, so.
Yes, thank you. Thank you for sharing that. And that is the privilege walk. It is done different ways. I've seen it facilitated different ways. I've facilitated it with different ways with middle school children. It is very, very powerful. But I think one of the important things to understand when we're doing this work, and if we're on that line and we're stepping 2 steps forward because our parents were able to access the GI Bill, and if we're stepping 2 steps back because we are people of color who were excluded from the GI Bill and access to education and low-income mortgages, we're taking 2 steps back. So I think it's very, very important to understand, to really bring the elephant into the room, in a sense. And I know that sometimes when we speak, we talk about privileged people, who has access, who has opportunity. And I think it's very, very important to bring whiteness into the space. So when we talk about privilege, when we talk about the system that this country was founded on, which is a white supremacy system. And so we need to understand that whiteness is this, absolutely, this social construct that was created for that privilege. So that opportunity and access would be offered to white people. And so we can certainly have conversations about class and how that shows up for different groups of people, but that the important conversation to always racialize those type of privileged conversations, because it really identifies the most important disease, if you will. And if you're going to solve a problem, we really need to look more than just the symptoms, but we need to look at the disease. And that obviously is to understand how race was constructed and why race was constructed in this country. Yes?
I'm going to throw one more thing.
Please.
So, the other thing that I saw on Facebook recently was a professor who does an exercise. There was a line down the middle, and he asked men, what do you do to avoid being sexually harassed or assaulted? Right? And most of the men were like, don't really think about it. One comical answer was, don't go to prison. Right? And then they asked the women, what do you do? And I'm sure there's 9 men in here, I think, mostly women. You can all talk about, use my keys as a weapon, park in places that are, public, or well lit, meet people on the first date in public places, go out with my friends, never get caught alone. I mean, the list goes on and on and on, right? And I know I'm not a woman.
But you have 2 daughters.
I have 2 daughters. And a third daughter.
And a wife.
And a third daughter in college. And I can't imagine the things you have to go through every day in life. I am a black man, so I have a different issue that you guys have to put up with in terms of, well, my wife tells the story all the time of her coming up with a new way to do a problem in college, and people saying, no way you knew that, you're a woman, right? That kind of stuff. So that is another issue.
It certainly is. Yes. Yes, thank you. Yes, Jenny.
I wanted to say one thing just to open it up, because you could look at the United States as this is a privilege of color, of being white. But having worked for British Petroleum, some of the oil industries, some of the people who do commodity trading, all kinds of very large businesses in the world, I'd like to open it up to something a little bit more like, look, it's almost like when money is in the family, it's a part of the family. And whatever family that is, it's not really about the color of that family. Because, for instance, one of the things I saw was that dealing with oil, where oil is kind of like growing up on third base, you don't have to do anything to get the oil. Mother Nature creates it. And so those kinds of businesses where you take from the earth, but you didn't have to generate it yourself, that gives you a sense of wealth from something you don't have to put the work in. And they also kind of start in a better place. They can be of any color, but what they want to do is provide it to the people that they know, because it's in our, ants do this, right? They check the genetics. They see whether you're like them. I think the thing that we have to be able to do is we have to be able to open up and be able to look at something other than us, something that doesn't look like us, and include that thing in a way, or that person, right, in a way that is, I give you the possibility that you are as conscious, that you are as loving, that you are as many possibilities there as I have here. And I think that's a hard thing to do. I think it's not in our makeup as we came into it. It just happened that in the United States, we came on the Mayflower, it came from Europe, it came from the UK, right? And that's all I would say. Because you see corruption with money being given to you in any way that's you don't have to work too hard for. It's hard to do that.
Robin.
Yeah, I want to add to that and maybe contextualize some of it. I totally agree. That's a good, the big oil companies and those kinds of, is a great metaphor for privilege, because they didn't make the oil, but they control the oil, in a way. So that's a great metaphor, I think, for that. I think it's difficult to conflate that with race. The fact that different races do that, that's not what's important about it. The important part of that, which I think you said very well, was the fact that they didn't generate the oil, but they control it. So, so that's mostly economics and all of the things that come out of that. But I think when we talk about the historical context of the United States and how the United States essentially is able to be the United States with the economy it has now, it's, literally from centuries of free labor. So if you think of economics, we could never have the economy we have now, or had even 100 years ago, or even 200 years ago, without that kind of free labor. And so, and like you, I think it's important to really understand what we're looking at when we see, in this case you're talking about these big companies, but when we see these systems, because that's a system as well, right? we see these systems operating, it's really important, and you said it too, to make sure that race is part of what we're talking about when we talk about privilege, especially if you're talking about the United States. I mean, you just can't. The whole United States is based on that. And so, but I also think that when we talk about inclusion, and this is a new, I'm transforming all the time. So, and my title has the word inclusion in it, Associate Provost title at Wellesley. Inclusion, I think, what I'm paying attention to now is to change all the I's to we's. So when it says, so if I say, oh, I think I'm going to work with this community and we're going to do whatever, if I'm not saying this community and we are going to do blah, 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 then it really is still that paternalistic type of, oh, we can help, it's a very different kind of dynamic, and people don't respond well to that. Because we all have the right to our personhood. And so really as much as possible, and I catch myself doing that sometimes, so I'm trying to be mindful of it and make sure that I'm saying we and I'm doing we in the work. So I'll leave it at that.
Thank you. Doing we.
Yeah. And not the game. Not the
Oh, that's true. Yes.
I just wanted to say that one thing that came to mind when you talked, and it's not a subject I want to launch into because I'm learning about it. When Robin talked about free labor, and I think about the prison system.
Yes.
And we're using the prison system as free labor.
Well, that system's been continuing since the emancipation of slavery. Yes, where you went into convict leasing.
Right.
Yes. Right. So, absolutely. And if you have not seen the documentary 13th, I definitely recommend to see that. It's on Netflix. And that could be another event that we do with World of Wellesley. This is wonderful, and thank you so much for the engagement and speaking. I probably should have set up just a few guidelines in conversations, but we certainly are respectful of each other. But I think one of the most important guidelines in these conversations is to expect non-closure. I think that, it's, again, I could get into the culture of whiteness and needing to have finalization and sort of tie it up with a bow. But these conversations truly are ongoing. We're in a journey, and so to really be okay with that sometimes we're not going to be able to share our truth and everyone's going to be heard. So to feel okay with non-closure, and also think about these conversations are very difficult and they're rooted in discomfort. And the reason why they're rooted in discomfort is because they're difficult, but they're difficult because we need to learn. And so when you think about, if you're educators, how do you get your students, your children, your parents, your community to learn? And that's to push you into maybe a little discomfort. Because if I'm uncomfortable, that means that maybe I'm thinking critically like Annie asked us to do. And so if I'm thinking critically and I'm asking the questions, or someone's asking me, well, why do you think that? Share more with me. And so those are the kind of conversations that we need to get comfortable being uncomfortable. And so if that happens today, yes, it hurts. It does, to become uncomfortable and think about things that maybe you haven't thought about. But I'm going to ask you to push yourself to sit with that discomfort and realize that that's part of the process, and you will learn from it. I do all the time. So I want to just, leave our space as we move forward to think about not having closure and being able to be in a place of discomfort, but also being in a space where you can speak your truth and realize that there might be some discomfort in that, or you might impact someone as a result of that, and how we work through these conversations. So thank you, everyone. Because of time, I'm going to get back into my whiteness and say we need to get going. So what we had planned to do is show an excerpt of Now in Color. I'm afraid that the audio isn't great with it, so I'm almost thinking that, that we're going to bypass that to save some time. But I do recommend, there is a sheet on, one sheet on each of the tables that talks about microaggressions. So real quickly, Now in Color was a Wellesley High School written and directed play last year that involved 23 or 24 students, 11 or 12 people who identify racially as white, and 11 or 12 students, children that identify as people of color. And they did an absolute amazing job in highlighting experiences specifically around Wellesley Metco, our Metco program, where children are bused in. We have 157 Boston families, and their children are transported, thank you, Brandon, into Wellesley to go to school every day, and highlighted their experiences, some of their experiences, and one of the things they highlighted was microaggressions. So you'll see the definition here on the table, and I definitely recommend for you to go to YouTube, put in Now in Color Wellesley, and watch the entire production. It is it's amazing, and I will also send out the 10-minute video on the microaggressions to everyone who registered through an email once we respond, and just thank you for coming. So if that's okay, we are going to just take a few-minute break while we set up our panel conversation, National Goals Through Diverse Local Leadership, and then we will move forward with Allison Britton, who will be the moderator, who's the Secretary of Wilda Wellesley, and she will lead us for the next hour in our panel conversation. Just wanted to remind everyone the restrooms are outside the door on the right-hand side. We are in celebration of Diwali. We are in the Diwali holiday right now. It's a couple of days in. That's a festival of lights. We have Rama Ramaswamy, who is a board member, a resident of Wellesley, who is going to be doing a history and celebration of Diwali. She also has some food that she's made, homemade, last night that she's going to share with us over lunch. So that is what our centerpieces are highlighting today, and for those of our neighbors and friends who are celebrating Diwali. Yes, so thank you everyone. We'll take a few minutes, we'll set up the tables, and then we'll pull everybody back together. Thanks for listening.